Hello, everyone. Welcome to Module 4's overview. So the purpose of this video is to introduce you to your assignments this week and the information you need to complete those assignments. So we're just going to be reading one chapter this week. This is chapter 9, titled Individuals and Identity, Agency and History. This is pages 200 to 219, and it's about individual decision-making, identity, and power. So we'll be looking at topics that stem from a somewhat different theoretical framework, still pertinent. We've already been talking about HBE, or human behavioral ecology, and how this framework is based on an understanding of human rationality that is intrinsically related to the natural environment and the survivability of human beings as biological beings. The theme of this framework is to understand how choices are made predominantly to accomplish particular biological or evolutionary expectations through social behaviors. And so that comes to be the explanation of human decisions and behaviors. How those expectations can act as a set of requirements for people to do what they do in social engagements in particular environments. But rather, this week, we're going to be looking at agency and structuration theory. So this is a little bit different, looking at frames of decisions beyond our biological needs for food, health, and reproduction, things like that. This framework uses the recognition of individual positionality within a social setting to interpret how individual behavior and choices are influenced, as well as how group behavioral choices are influenced by individual choices if that individual has power over them. So we'll see how archaeologists frame individual choices in relation to social structures and how there's an interplay here, which archaeologists are interested in, kind of like how in previous weeks we've been interested in the interplay between human societies and the environment. We'll see how this can vary greatly depending on the individual and on the society, but this can be especially seen through the bioarchaeological indications of violence, injury, or illness that are left on human skeletal remains. More on this in the reading overview, Module 4's reading overview video. I'll go a bit more into detail what you'll be reading there. For now, I'm just going to wrap up the synopsis on the Chapter 9 reading that you're assigned this week and just go right into our assignments now. So first of all, you'll see that there's a midterm free response evaluation in this week's module. This is an ungraded assignment. We ask for your responses in the middle of the course to get an idea of how the course is going, perhaps to engage some changes in the second half of the course that might be done to improve the content and the instruction of the course. So if you could fill those out, we would greatly appreciate those. Again, those are ungraded and just for assessment purposes. So then the first set of assignments that are actually graded is discussion 4. This is going to have the usual 3 parts. You have prep 0, you have part 1, and you have the group summary part 2. So in this assignment, we're going to consider how archaeology intersects with the concept of race and racism. So we're going to be thinking about how the archaeological record displays a variety of inequalities between enslaved individuals and those who were not enslaved. We're going to consider the differences in the material cultural record between these different populations, both individual differences and population scale differences. We're going to see how the bioarchaeological or osteological record indicates things like health and the cause of death. It indicates things like nutrition and diet, things like sustained injuries and chronic illnesses, or even indicate population-wide similarities and differences of these points that can be associated with the systematics of racial segregation. So in this discussion, we want to think about how those sorts of differences may have evolved over time, how they might relate to other intersections of class and gender. And this can bring into discussion points about societal transformations since the end of the transatlantic slave trade. And so we can think about how the material record of that time period helps us relate today to it. And to further enrich our understanding and our stories of emancipation, the period of the Jim Crow South, the civil rights movement, and even what racism looks like today in all its similar and transformed aspects. We want to ask questions to consider the concept of stakeholders like we have in previous weeks, but in this particular concept, in this particular context, we want to think about how preserving that record can come through stewardship that is representative of particular stakeholders who are maybe direct descendants of those contexts, and how educational approaches with these materials might be incorporated in stewardship and preservation initiatives, and what sorts of agreements might be necessary between archaeologists and those who are stakeholders in the past in these contexts. The focus of this discussion here is to think about how archaeological evidence of slavery in the past helps us to understand the legacy of racism that persists today as something that is part of our cultural landscape of ideas and behavior and can be interpreted through the remains of individuals. Moving on from the discussion, we'll see that our next assignment is quiz number 4 on identity and power, looking at questions pertaining to individual agency, especially historical figures like King Richard III, who will be introduced to this week in our readings and in our film. Our film is Resurrecting Richard III, and how that archaeological record of his burial is used to interpret his life and the decisions that he made over the course of his life. We're going to consider how individuals relate to larger scales of group behavior within cultures in the past in these questions, and how archaeological technologies that are found to be implemented in agricultural contexts within the Aztec Empire led to growth within Mesoamerica in that period of time, and how cultural material and human osteological remains help archaeologists interpret human agency in the past. This will be a big theme in the questions here in this quiz. Our last assignment for the week is poster step 2. This is in particular to submitting scholarly sources. So in this assignment, we're going to do a literature review, and we're going to collect 4 resources on your poster topic. These are to help you along your way in your poster assignment and preparing you for the information that you'll be putting in the sections on your poster. So there's going to be directions to follow in the assignment. Here, poster step 2, on how to use OSU's libraries and other databases to find scholarly sources. Also, there's guidelines on what to include in your reference list, what counts as a good source and what kinds of sources are not adequate as a source to use for this poster. We want to be sure to stay away from history sources. We want to be sure that we are presenting on archaeological contexts, right? Archaeological materials like artifacts or eco-facts left in the archaeological record. From there, you will compile your short list of sources. Please consider that newer syntheses of research can be good overviews of your topics, and some case studies would be good to include, perhaps, of particular archaeological sites that can help you better understand what methods might have been used by archaeologists, or perhaps what some of the material remains consist of. You want to think about how each source is going to provide you with segments of information that you have to address with the poster assignment, meaning you want to display a broad and appropriate range of concepts and contexts that are considered by archaeologists on your topic, and the methods that they use that you might also have learned in this course might want to be highlighted along the way. This should allow for you to provide from your own perspective and provide for an interpretive discussion at the latter half near the conclusion of your poster. Okay, if you have any questions about these assignments or what you have to do this week, just reach out. Please let me know and enjoy your reading. Thank you.